Hey, what is up guys? Gonna be doing a deck profile on the Pendulum scraps that I've been playing. This deck is a very huge threat for the next upcoming formats once we get Pendulum Summoning in the TCG. Now, with the scraps, you definitely don't have to be playing the Pendulums in it. The deck is pretty good on its own, but I figure we'll make the most extensive plays and the hugest amount of special summoning all in one turn just to go for that huge all-in, no fear OTK, but you could probably be playing this deck a little bit on the safer side if you want to be playing those MSTs and stuff, but for the most part, you can definitely come back because of the Pendulum Summoning mechanic, and especially with the whole scrap mechanic where when one of these scrap monster dies, whether it be Scrap Twin Dragon or your lonely one Scrap Dragon, we'll get to that later, it's totally fine because you can bring back Scrap Golem. Scrap Golem actually brings back another card on its own, and then you also happen to have Floatress, which actually brings back Scrap Twin Dragon, and the card also has a defensive aspect, which we'll get into later once we talk about him, but for the most part, you can recycle your stuff, and this deck just has so many plays. You don't always have to make Scrap Dragon, and that's what's cool with this deck. It's a scrap deck that basically synchros and XYZs for a bunch of crazy stuff, which is, you know, really fun to do. But anyways, let's go ahead and get started with the deck profile. I'll explain the choices as we go along, and let's get started. So, first off, we run the standard 9 Pendulum monsters. If you're unfamiliar and you're like, Asianized, what the heck is a pendulum monster? Down below in the description box, I'll link a video to, you know, what is a pendulum and how to perform a pendulum summon, as well as a video where you can basically see kind of a short little play where, you know, you can OTK someone through Draco Sack with the tokens. You can still OTK when your opponent has 5 monsters on board, and that's what's really cool with this deck. But like I said, if you want to, you can be playing MSTs. If you want to, you can drop the Maxis if you want to. If you want to be playing it on a different aspect. But pendulum summoning is really hot right now in DevPro, so a lot of players will be making really big pushes, and Maxi is a fantastic card, and you know, it'll let you OTK them back, pretty much guaranteed, unless they obviously somehow stop this, which is very rare unless they happen to have, I don't know, Herald of Orange Light or something crazy like that. But anyways, let's get started. So, we're playing triple of the Odd Eyes Pendulum Dragons, we're playing triple of the Magician of Astromancies, and triple of the Magician of Chronomancy. Basically, this is the standard 9 that everyone plays. Next up, I'm playing 2 Scrap Golem. This card, like I said, it's so good. Even if you go all in no fear and they stop you with a Torrential or something, if they Torrential you once you go for your, like, you special summon a bunch of cards to the Pendulum Summon, usually you still have a normal summon, so you can still go off those extensive plays, whether it be something like just, you know, normal summon that's bring back a card, then go for your Athros, because you cannot special summon Scrap Athros through Pendulum Summoning, so you'll still have an option, and that's just really good, because what's cool with Scrap Dragon, if you pop, you know, your cards, you can bring back, this is so crazy, you can bring back Scrap Golem and then just go ahead and just keep on going for your plays. So even if your opponent stops your plays, you can still definitely just push through OTK. Like your opponent Torrentials, no fear, just go in anyways. This card it's fantastic. It's pretty self-explanatory though. I mean, if you draw it, don't worry. Like before when you draw Scrap Golem, it kind of sucked, but now it's totally fine. You draw it, oh, it's called Pendulum Summon, special summon for free. Next, they're playing 2 Scrap Kongs. That just works with the field spell. Very rarely will you just normal summon it and have it die, unless you want to. You have a real bad hand, you got to do something right now. Supply unit is an option. Next up, we play 2 Scrap Athros. It's basically used for more extensive plays. Pretty self-explanatory. Once you control Scrap, special it pops a card. Sometimes you can pop other cards. You don't always have to pop itself, but when it's destroyed by a scrap card, and obviously he's a scrap, and since graveyard, you can select 1 scrap monster in your graveyard and add it to your hand. I mean, basically, they all kind of do the same thing. Like when it's sent to the graveyard by a scrap effect, you can select 1 scrap monster graveyard. They all do the same thing. They're just, it's good to have level 3s and level 4s, so it's good to have that variety. Next up, 2 Scrap Chimera. You basically want to dump this card to the graveyard as fast as you want, as fast as you can, because you're going to be adding it back later with your other cards. So what this card allows you to do is, if your play goes south, let's say they Torrential, let's say they for whatever reason they stop your play, Scrap Chimera still gives you that normal summon, because you don't really use your normal summon too often. You pretty much just go all in. Sometimes you do need your normal summon to get started with the Athros and the field spell, but a lot of times you'll be using the Pendulum's effect, and you're just going to go for that huge push and just go for game anyways. But usually, what I add back most of the time, whether it's with Scrap Athros or with Scrap Beast, is it's always going to be Scrap Chimera. It's pretty much, because this allows you to get rid of, you know, if your opponent is playing something like, I don't know, Ophion, you can get rid of that. You know, what's cool with this is supply unit works off of, you know, obviously it works off the scraps, and it works off of Diamond Dire, which is awesome. Next, I'm playing 3 Scrap Beasts. This is the card that you want to draw in combination with this. It's too good. Scrap Yard is also, and basically searches out the card. You want this card, let's put it that way. You can also search out this, but most of the time, first turn, it's always Scrap Beast. Then you go ahead and give you the basic play. So, First turn, what you want to do, if you happen to have this, and you're pretty much good to go. You have a lot more plays, but the standard scrap play is you have Scrap Beast out, and then you set Scrap Storm. Remember, you don't activate this immediately. You can if you want to, but you know, since you've already used your normal summon, and there's really no point to Pendulum Summon first turn unless, Don't Pendulum Summon first turn. It's not really worth it, basically. So you're gonna normal summon this card and then set this card, and then whenever your opponent is about to attack you or do something, you activate Scrap Storm. Okay, let me go ahead and read the effect of Scrap Storm. So Scrap Storm says you select one face-up monster, scrap monster you control, send one scrap monster from your deck to the graveyard, then draw one card, then destroy the selected monster. And it happens in that exact order. So what you would do is with Scrap Storm, you target this card over here. You then send one scrap monster from your deck to the graveyard, which is always, well, most of the time it's going to be this card. Very rarely will it be something else, but you send Scrap Chimera to the graveyard, and then you draw a card, and then you destroy Scrap Beast. Then Scrap Beast activates its effect, and then it gets to add one scrap monster from your graveyard, except for Scrap Beast. So you add back Scrap Chimera. Then you can normal summon Scrap Chimera next turn, bring out Scrap Beast, and then from there, you get to decide what you want to do. That's your, like, normal summon play. Heck, you can go for your normal summon play before you go for your Pendulum Summon. That's actually what I recommend you guys to do, unless they, you know, don't have background. In that case, go all in, because Pendulum Summon is an inherent special summon, which means they cannot chain Max C to it. So that'd be much better, because if you activate Scrap Chimera, they might just activate Max C. But if they have no back row, go for the Pendulum Summon first, and then you can decide to stop. You can go all in for game if you want. Definitely decide if you want to do that. But you know, there's always this card to follow up on if you happen to not finish them off, and then they can't do anything. Well, depending on the deck that they're playing also, because technically XYZ's, you know, their ranks, so you know that doesn't matter. But next up, we're playing one Scrap Goblin. It's just because he's level 3 and he's a tuner. That's like the only reason. I wouldn't recommend dropping Scrap Beast. If anything, maybe drop Scrap Calm. This card is searchable. I mean, a lot of the cards are basically searchable. But I think one's good because it just allows access to other monsters. Next up, Triple Maxi. It's really good against the Dragon matchup because most of the time in Dragons, I mean, they can OTK. I mean, in the OCG, they have a different list, so it's still kind of popular, I would say, in the OCG. But Triple Maxi, very good. I will admit, you can deck out, but usually you'll draw about 15-ish cards, depending on like how bad they want to try to push for game. And you have to be playing a Swift Scarecrow, because if you're drawing like 10 cards, and your opponent OTKs you anyways, you still lose. So I like the one Swift Scarecrow. You can play 2 if you want to, but I think 1 is, it works. It works. Because if they're going to be letting you draw like, you know, 10, 15 cards, hopefully you've drawn it. And if not, well, I'm sorry. Or if you've decked out, well, then you can drop back C maybe for MSCs. Next up, Triple Scrapyard. You want this card as quickly as possible. And next up, we're playing Triple Terraforming because you want the field spell as quickly as possible. A pretty simple play is activate field spell, normal summon Scrap Kong then dies, then you could special summon Scrap Golem, and then Scrap Golem can activate its effect, bring back Scrap Kong, so it's a really good, simple effect. It does also trigger with supply unit. I mean, anything that you're destroying, whether it be you destroy or your opponent destroys, you get to draw a free card, so that's pretty good. If you have a really bad hand, you can activate supply unit, normal summon Scrap Kong, let Scrap Kong die, get a free draw. That is available for you as well. Next up, we're playing Triple Scrap Storm, which we basically talked about already. Triple Supply Unit, it just allows you to make it so your opponent kind of questions if they want to push, and it allows you to technically draw on your turn so you can go for even bigger plays, and it also lets you technically draw into Max C or even that Swift Scarecrow, just in case your opponent somehow Swift Scarecrows you, or Wabokus, or Threatening Roars you, because I would say right now, versus a lot of Pendulum decks, I've seen a lot of random Threatening Roars in decks. Like Sworn is, yeah, it's always kind of a popular deck, and that deck definitely runs Threatening Roars, or that have a Necrogarden so you can't attack them for game. So, you know, I think that, you know, this is just good to actually get extra draw power during your turn. Why not? I mean, it's free draw power, plus when you destroy your own cards, you get to draw. And then I'm playing 3 Scrap Factory, which is the field spell, which is fantastic, and it's a pretty good card. The 200 attack is like whatever, but the main effect is that when a scrap monster is destroyed by a card effect and sent to the graveyard, you can special summon 1 scrap monster from your deck, and you can only use the effect of it once per turn. Otherwise, oh man, you'd be able to, yeah, it's already good enough, to be honest. You don't need more. As far as the extra goes, we got Star Eater, we got Leo, the Keeper of the Sacred Tree, or Great Tree, whatever. Next up, we're playing Scrap Twin Dragon, and you'll notice there's only 1 Scrap Dragon. Well, for the most part, you don't really need Scrap Dragon. Like, you can play this deck without it, totally. The Scrap Twin Dragon is definitely needed. This card is really good. Bouncing back cards sometimes is more important than destroying. But anyways, we're playing Floatress. Floatress brings back this card all the time, and you can bring back other cards, but it's pretty much bring back this to pop more cards, and then you get to actually finish off your game. Next up, we're also playing Dueling Network Archfiend, because it's Dueling Network Archfiend. This card's amazing. If you want to go for any 8s, real easy, it's just this and to get back pretty much anything. I mean, it should be a pretty self-explanatory play, but you know, it's just easy level 8s is what scraps do. You play one Scrap Dragon, you can definitely up it if you want, but you really only need one. We're playing this Stardust Spark Dragon. Sometimes if you're afraid of an OTK, you can go for this. If you're like, well, you know, I just can't survive, I've already maybe used Swift Scarecrow, what do I make in a position? This can help. I mean, most of the time against another Pendulum deck, they're going to go all in anyways, and they're going to steal this card, and you're probably going to lose anyways, but, you know, you can hope, right? We can always hope. Honestly, what I like this card against is, I kind of like it against Boojins, because it gets annoying for them. But for the most part, like, Boojins shouldn't give you a problem. I mean, obviously, if they have, hair, which makes it so they can't be destroyed by battle or by card effect, which is cool. If they have turtle, where you can't target it, obviously from there, you can figure out what you want to do. I'm trying to think of what would be the best option. I mean, you can pop everything, but you might not want to do that if they happen to have turtle, because turtle just makes it so you can't target it. I mean, trust me, you can actually force out the turtle, and then just you can finish them off anyways. Don't even worry about it. I don't think I'd worry about it. The deck it's too slow. If they happen to activate Kaiser Coliseum, yeah, you basically lost. I'll admit, there's no outs for this. There's no MSCs. Like I said, this is all in no fear. You could drop these for MSCs if you want to, but I figure it's so much more enjoyable just to special summon like 40 more like 10. You just special summon a bunch of cards. It just feels good. You're like, oh, I'm so good at Yu-Gi-Oh! Even though Pendulum Summoning makes it really easy. But yeah. We're playing one Moonlight Rose Dragon. I decided to play this inside of Black Rose. Very rarely will I need to blow up the field. Like, I'm just going to steal your stuff is what it comes down to. But when this card is special summon, you get to, or when a level 5 or higher monster is special summon, you get to target one special summon monster your opponent controls, and you get to return it to the hand. This is another one of those cards where if you know your opponent's playing something that you don't like, and you're like, okay, well, they're playing a synchro deck, and once they go for their big play, just make this, and then basically they can't really do anything. There's also this card. Very rarely will you get this out, but it is possible, and if you can get it out, it's pretty awesome. But it has a pretty good effect. Once per turn, you can detach one and then banish one card your opponent controls. So that's the main effect, realistically, what it comes down to. Because after you go for Floatress, it doesn't really do too much, but you know, it does require 2 level 9s, so I'm trying to think of what other deck can really use it. I totally thought it was a Mecha Phantom Beast, but it's called the Mirage. I wonder if it's got to be something to do with Mecha Phantom Beast. But anyways, make this card after you go for this is basically what it comes down to. If you really need to go on that defensive side, or I mean, you could technically go on that aggressive side if you want to, but for the most part, when you're going for this and then you go for this, you might be able to. You can try, but it's just level 8 or lower monsters cannot attack. I'm trying to think of, I mean, most of the time you could synchro in and just like make bigger monsters anyways, but sometimes you end up making 8s, and therefore you can't attack during the turn they're normal or special. So just be aware that there is technically a downside when you go for this. But this is an XYZ, so don't worry about this. This can attack. Next up, Draco Sack. This is the main reason why I don't play Black Rose. If I really need to get rid of something, except for Kaiser Coliseum, because I can't make this if I'm playing against Boojins, this card just gets rid of problematic cards, you know, like Marshmelons, like those things. Oh, Marshmelon shouldn't be a problem anyway. It just appears forever. This card's really good. Generally, you don't want to XYZ with your Odd Eyes Pendulum Dragon, because when you XYZ with them, when you detach, they go to the graveyard instead of the extra deck and the face-up. So don't XYZ unless you're making a game, is what it comes down to. Next up, Gaia. Don't forget Gaia like I did in that other game. But anyways, Bulkasaur is pretty good too. You make it with just 2 scrap golems. Pretty self-explanatory. Big Eye. It's a pretty good card. Shouldn't really need to talk more about that. This card's amazing. It gets rid of Ophion is really what it comes down to. It's just a quick little out to Ophion. And then Diamond Direwolf, which is a really fantastic card, because not only does it pop cards, but yeah, with Supply Unit you get to draw. But anyways, if you guys have any suggestions for any other Pendulum decks, I'll probably be playing some more Pendulum decks, but that'll be probably next week-ish. I want to get some other duels in, because I've kind of shown you guys some Pendulum, and a lot of you guys are interested in seeing a bunch of other decks, and I love Scraps, and it's a really good deck and all, but you know, I want to get a variety of gameplay, and I'll probably play this deck maybe few more times next week once I get some more playtesting in with it, and we'll modify it. Maybe we can drop the pendulums completely. Maybe we can drop the scraps completely and we'll play a completely different deck. There's a gadget pendulum deck, which is a pretty nasty deck too, but I don't know. Let me know, guys, if you guys have any deck ideas for pendulums. I would love to hear them because, you know, I think gadgets are an excellent example, but it's a pretty common one. Like, it's just go for Gear Gigant Axe and add a bunch of cards, and then, well, you pretty much just have Gear Gigant Axe multiples, lots of them, and you could OTK pretty easy. But I think it'd be pretty cool to see a Quasar pendulum deck, because, I mean, that definitely seems like it'd be something that's very easy to do. Yeah, I think I could pull it off. Anyways, I'll have to think of what to actually do with that, but I definitely will be making a Quasar pendulum deck. But anyways, thanks for watching, guys. Azneyes out.